Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We're so glad you're here this evening. My name is Annette Reynolds. I am half of Team Impressa, and with me tonight, I have my partner, Lynn Cohen,
Hi, everybody.
and I have our mortgage folks. I have Andrew Marquis and James Ellis. And we've put together a small presentation to answer the question, should you rent or should you buy? And it was very interesting how we came upon this topic. Lynn and I were working with somebody who was looking to rent an apartment, and the rent was, I think, $4,000 a month. It was a nice apartment. But by the time we talked about getting the first month's, last month's rent, the security deposit of $4,000, and then the broker's fee, that was $16,000. And I mentioned this to Andrew, and he said, Annette, that's a down payment, and then some. So we started doing a little bit of research to see what your rent could buy. And with that, we put together a small presentation. I'm actually going to launch it right now and introduce in a little bit of depth our panelists and go from there.
There you go.
There I go. And I mentioned Lynn, I mentioned myself. We've been in the business for quite a while, and we are highly trained coaches. We work with our clients by asking them what they want to accomplish, and we help them achieve it. We also have worked a long time with Andrew and with James. And the reason that we work with these gentlemen is that when they say they're going to help somebody with a mortgage, I don't have to worry about it. Neither does Lynn. It gets done. So, Lynn, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Okay. Why should you even think about owning? You're young, you're mobile, you're not sure where you want to be. In a year or two, renting has worked for you thus far. And then, boy, oh boy, along came COVID, and you're working from home, probably in cramped quarters. As we logged in tonight, I was teasing James because I could see the Enfamil in the background. He's working from his kitchen counter because and in pretty cramped quarters because our worlds have been turned upside down. So we're hearing from a lot of folks that they need more space. And with more space comes higher rental costs. And after a while, it just simply doesn't make any sense. So what we've determined is that the actual monthly payment you pay for something could actually be less than your rent. If you're wise, you work with good agents like us, and we help you find the right thing. Annette, you can move to the next slide. Okay, so there are some downsides to renting. Most landlords, once they get you in there, like to raise your rent 5 to 10% a year. Renting pays your landlord's mortgage. You're building his wealth. He's paying down his mortgage, building his equity, and frankly, you're helping him do that. And then Annette and I were laughing. We've never been in a rental unit where the walls aren't off-white. If you want purple walls or orange walls, you're flat out of luck. In other words, you have complete control over your environment when you own someplace. Hey, James, you own or rent? I can't hear you. You're muted.
Oh, yeah. No, I own. I do own, yes.
Okay, so you could paint your walls, right? But when you
Fortunately,
when you were renting, they were all off-white, right?
Oh, they were all off-white, yeah.
There you go.
I couldn't paint them. Yeah.
So, we understand that owning implies that you make some kind of commitment. It also means that your landlord's not responsible if your refrigerator dies or something goes wrong in the place. And yes, you could have unplanned costs. We understand that. We could help you plan for that. And yet the upsides usually outweigh these small inconveniences. So why would you even think about buying? Well, you can stabilize your monthly expenses. You know that your mortgage payment is fixed for the duration of your loan, 15, 20, 30 years. And while you pay your mortgage, you're building your personal wealth. Even if a new job took you out of the area, hopefully you could hold on to that place and become a landlord yourself. And you really can make it your own. You can have walls any color you want. You can control your environment. You can upgrade if you choose to, things you simply can't do in a rental. We understand that in your mind, owning probably implies a commitment. And yes, you'll be responsible to take care of the place. And yes, you might have some unplanned expenses. And yet we can help you create a plan for that and prepare for that. And the checks and balances need to be there for you, and each of you will have your own needs, which we can talk about one-on-one if you're interested. So why buy? Well, we can help you stabilize your monthly expenses. As I said, you'll start to build equity and personal wealth for yourself. We talked about making it your own. And if that commitment word is too hard for you and a year or two from now you're moving on, maybe you hold on to that space and you can become the landlord. Wouldn't that be cool? So lots of good reasons to consider buying, especially now if you're working from home because of COVID and you're in small space in the city. From what we're seeing, there's a huge movement to get out of the city and into larger space, maybe with a yard or a little bit of outdoor space. Okay, Andrew, I'm going to let you step in here and let's talk about this concept. I'm assuming that everyone on this call doesn't know terms that we use every single day. Like, what's this deal with equity? Exactly what do they mean when they talk about principal? Why is this a good idea? And I don't think anybody can explain it better than you can.
Thank you so much for having me, ladies, and I appreciate all the attendees jumping on tonight to hear us speak about the benefits of home ownership versus renting. You said a bunch of stuff, and I've been making some notes here, Lynn, just on some of the things you've triggered in my mind. But one of the things I'd like to start with is wealth, the way that people create wealth. And it's really in two areas for most people. It's in their retirement account and it's in their real estate. And so I find, if you have an individual that rented their whole life, they're really missing 50% of the pie. They're missing that equity appreciation over time, which we're going to talk about just in a minute. And I saw a statistic, I've seen it again and again. You've probably seen this too, where folks that own real estate, their net worth is 46 times more than those who don't own real estate. So there's absolutely some truth behind this that, picking up a property, the sooner you kind of get your foot into the market, the earlier in your life you'll be able to create wealth. So commenting on this particular slide, the term equity is really the difference between the market value of your property and the debt owed on your property, right? So as an example, you buy a house for $500,000. Let's say you put $100,000 down. Your initial equity is $100,000 because you owe $400,000. Your house is worth $500,000. Now, as you move forward with that loan and you make payments every month, you're gaining equity in two different ways. You're gaining equity because the principal balance of your loan is amortizing, meaning the amount you owe on that initial $400,000 loan is coming down each month because a portion of that payment you're making monthly for the mortgage is actually going to reduce the debt you owe on the property. So even without any appreciation at all, you're gaining equity every single month, whereas when you're renting, it's sort of money going, out the window. The second
It's like an enforced savings account, right?
Exactly, Lynn, exactly. So it's kind of like those accounts where I think they round it up and they put the difference of pennies or change into a separate account. You're forcing yourself to save every single month, whereas with the rent, you're forcing your landlord to save every single month. And then the second component of building equity, again, number one is you're paying your loan down. Number two is the potential of the property to appreciate over time. So, I don't think anyone on this slide is going to guarantee you that your house will appreciate over time. But if you look at the history, and especially the history in the Boston markets and Metro Boston, we've seen significant home price appreciation over, a long period of time. So, with that minimal, that amount you're paying down, the value going up, you originally borrowed 400,000, you paid it down to 350, and maybe that $500,000 house is now worth 600,000. So that 100,000 of initial equity is now 250,000. So that's a real benefit of owning versus renting, is just gaining that equity in the property.
Andrew, this is the only investment that I'm aware of that allows you to capture the appreciation on the total value of the property, not on the value of your investment. When you
That's
buy a share of stock, you need dollar for dollar money to buy that stock. Whereas here, you could put as little as 3% down, but over time, as the property appreciates, you get the appreciative value of the entire investment, regardless of what your initial deposit was. And that's a very big deal in terms of wealth building.
Yeah, no, and just to kind of illustrate what Lynn's saying, that's a phenomenal point, Lynn, is that goes back to other people's money. So
Right.
ultimately, you're realizing the appreciation on the full asset value. So to kind of show how that would work is the house is 500,000. Let's say it goes up 3%. So it went up, basically 15,000 in value. So it's a 3% return on the asset, but that's actually a 15% return on your 100,000 you put down. So you're essentially realizing the appreciation on the bank's money as well as your own money, which is awesome. Totally.
Exactly. Are we ready for the next slide? There you go. So Andrew, why don't you take this one?
Great.
And I think this is really important, Andrew, because I remember when I bought my first house, I figured I needed 20% down. I didn't have anywhere near that in the bank. And I couldn't believe that I could qualify for a mortgage because I didn't have the information I needed to do so. So that's why this slide is in here.
So that's a great point, Annette, and that's actually where I was going to begin. The biggest issue with first-time homebuyers getting into the market for the longest time has been accumulating the down payment. It's not their credit, it's not their income. It's really, with them paying $3,000 a month for rent, how am I supposed to save my 20% down? So over time, with all these programs, whether it be mass housing for the state or some of these federal programs, they continue to make the lower down payment programs more and more attractive. So, homeowners right now have down payment assistance options through mass housing where the down payment would be very, very low. Some of those loans have no PMI. So PMI is private mortgage insurance, or a small monthly fee that's assessed when your down payment is less than 20%. And those PMI costs, which once upon a time were very expensive and sort of a big deterrent for putting less money down, have really been diminished so much that, I have a lot of clients that have the ability to put 20% down, but they look at me and they say, why would I do that? I can put 3 or 5% down, or in some cases even less than that. I can save all my money on the side where I can either earn, 6 or 7% maybe in the stock market, or you know what, maybe I can talk to Annette and Lynn about buying an investment property in a year or two. Why use all my money when the cost of borrowing is so cheap? So it kind of goes back to that previous slide where you were talking about first month, last month security, maybe a realtor fee. By the time we talk about all that money folks are trying to save to rent, in a lot of cases, they could actually buy a place, own something, start building equity sooner in their life, and realizing all these other benefits we've been describing. So, there's a lot of different programs that we can go into, with people offline, but, there's FHA, there's mass housing, there's conventional loan programs with 3% down, there's renovation loans where people can buy a home that isn't in the greatest condition, or maybe it's dated, but they can use the bank's money to get a new kitchen, update the bathrooms, repair a leaky roof. So there's just a ton of options, and I think until folks have that exploratory conversation with your team and us, you might be missing the boat on some of these awesome options that exist nowadays.
Exactly. Okay, next slide.
I put this slide in here, Andrew, because we toss these terms around because we use them all the time. And a lot of people, and you know, they say, I feel stupid asking, but I don't know what he's talking about. So I thought I would just throw in a dictionary here for you.
Sure. So when you pay a mortgage, your mortgage payment is made up really of two components. It's made up of the interest you pay the lender, which, oh, by the way, mortgage interest is tax deductible up to a limit of $750,000 in majority of cases. So we talked about paying down the principal, building equity. We didn't yet talk about the fact that right now tax rates on income seem to go up every year. So if you don't own property, you're in a very high tax bracket potentially, and you could be paying a lot of extra money to the government. Whereas if otherwise you owned, you can use that mortgage interest you pay to reduce your taxable income, sometimes into a lower tax bracket. And now you have the benefit of paying less taxes to the government, so saving money there. In almost all cases, rent is not tax deductible. And then you're also building equity by paying the principal down. So again, your mortgage payment, principal and interest, that interest component you pay, that's that very low interest rate. Oh, by the way, COVID, mortgage rates are at the lowest levels of all time right now. So very, very cheap money, tax deductible. The other component is principal. That's the money that is reducing the balance you owe on the house every month when you make payments. PITI stands for your total mortgage payment if we include the principal and interest, which is the loan payment, and then we add in the taxes and insurance on the property. So, you know, the property taxes you would pay, which also, by the way, in some cases could be tax deductible. That one's a little bit more complicated. And then the insurance that you buy to insure that home. Now, the interesting thing I've always noticed about insurance is that it's far less costly on a home than it would be on an automobile, because a home isn't moving around. You know, it's not going to run someone over at, 1 in the morning, right? But it's always just interesting to me that you could pay like $1,000 or $1,500 a year to insure a house for $700,000. It just seems, very, I guess the risk is very low of something happening to that home. But anyway, that's what PITI is. Private mortgage insurance, we did just touch base on briefly, but that's an insurance assessed when the down payment is less than 20%. And there are ways around that, whether it be a buyout option, a little bit higher rate where we defray the cost. And like I said before, don't rely on Zillow and Redfin when you're looking up EMI numbers. They're going to overquote it in many times by 500% of what it actually is. So let's talk about it. I can give you some real numbers. Closing costs are what you pay to buy a property in addition to your down payment. So, we have these options. We're talking about 3% down or sometimes less than that. In addition to those, we have closing costs. Now, closing costs can be paid by the buyer, the seller, or the lender. So there's a lot of ways that we can deal with those closing costs. They typically are in the 1 to 2% range of the price of the house. But again, there's a lot of ways that we can work within your budget with those closing costs.
Well, what do they include? I think they include the appraiser. And
yeah, so in the closing costs in that, we would have our lender fees, our appraiser, that's right. And then we'd have some attorney fees for the title insurance, recording fees. So we have to record that mortgage and deed at the registry of deeds. Now, like we were talking about a slide or two ago, really the biggest issue for people buying a home is down payment funds, right? They have the income, they have the good credit, they've done a good job, but it's been very hard to save. It's very expensive living in this area. I always like to mention to people, you don't know where your down payment, everyone thinks, oh, I don't have enough in my savings account. Well, have you checked out options to maybe borrow against an investment or retirement account? Because they allow you to borrow from that retirement account without a penalty for a first-time purchase. And essentially, you're borrowing your own money, which you can pay back, and it allows you to invest in another asset, a piece of real estate. The other thing I mention to people is, more and more nowadays, and I know, Annette, you and Lynn see this, young buyers are getting gift funds, whether it's their parents or siblings or aunt and uncle, their grandparents. They want to see them benefit from those savings they have before they, move on someday. So more and more, until you ask or until you have that dialogue with your family, they might say, hey, we always were intending to help you out with your first time purchase and give you what's called gift funds, which is essentially, and there's really no restrictions there. That's where a family member is helping out that buyer with the down payment money to buy a home. So again, a good conversation to have. Seasoning of funds is a little bit, I would say, in that less relevant to this call in some ways. But what that actually means is that we want to see the money in your bank account that you're using to purchase that property. So, a perfect example would be, hey, I get paid in cash. I make all this money in cash. It's buried in my backyard in a safe. I'm just going to throw it in my bank account. Now, to like a mortgage lender, that's like, because we can't document the source of those funds. So it's really important that before you start moving money around into bank accounts or depositing money to use to buy a home, that we have that conversation so that we're going to properly be able to source and season those funds so that the mortgage lender can verify them in the right way.
Cool. Okay.
I threw in this example, Andrew, just so people could see that they don't have to have perfect credit. They don't have to put down 20%. You may want to talk about debt to income ratio, just that there are ratios that you look at to see whether or not you can get them a loan.
Yeah, so this is a great slide, Annette, and I think it just illustrates the low down payment options. The only other one that I might toss in there is that Mass Housing Down Payment Assistance Program. So the Mass Housing allows you to put 5% down, but then if you qualify, they actually give you $15,000 down payment assistance. So to give the audience an example, let's say the property is $400,000. Your down payment would be 5%, which is $20,000. But then again, assuming you qualify, and really what I mean by that is you're a first-time home buyer and you make within the income confines of what Mass Housing allows, which are pretty high. I don't have it right in front of me. It does vary by county, but it's around 110 to 120 grand a year. So if you make less than that, you're a first-time home buyer, you would put down the 20,000, and then Mass Housing would actually give you 15,000 as a down payment assistance. So the net money you would need to buy that $400,000 home is actually only 5 grand, which if you do the math, that's just a little bit over 1% down payment. So that's a really neat one that, say the house is 500,000, you're putting down 25, you're getting 15 back, you're putting down 10 grand, that's only 2% down on a $500,000 house. And the rates on those right now are 2.75% on a 30-year fixed loan. So this is not an expensive loan, or, it's a great loan and the down payments are really awesome. Debt to income ratio, you see some of the credit scores we have here for these products. And then Mass Housing is really, for the most part, looking for a 680 credit score as well. The debt to income ratio is really how much, and we look at everything on a monthly basis. So we say, okay, what's your gross monthly income? Let's take a borrower that makes 10 grand a month. That's 120,000 a year. We're going to lend them up to 45 or 55% of that amount based on these charts. So let's just take an example of your other debt is $1,000 a month. You've got a $500 car payment, a $500 student loan. All the debt has to fit within that 45 or 55%. So again, your car payment's $500 a month, your student loan's $500 a month, that's your debt. You're doing a conventional loan, okay? You make 10 grand a month, we'll lend you 45% of that. That's 4,500 a month. Your debt's 1,000 a month. That leaves us clearance of 3,500 a month to give you for a mortgage payment. Now, 3,500 a month on a mortgage payment right now is a loan amount of probably around 625,000. So you're borrowing, and again, that's the loan amount. So if you said, I could put down 150 grand, you're buying a house for 775. So that's the way the debt to income ratio works, is we're just looking at the monthly liabilities, dividing it into your monthly gross income.
Now, I can see some people's eyes glazing over, like all of those numbers. Just rest assured that when you sit down with Andrew and you go through it, he'll explain it very slowly. And really, the only thing you're looking for is how much house can you afford and how much is it going to cost me each month. The other reason that I threw this slide in here is that borrowers have choices that they can make, and not every lender has the same programs or the same products that other lenders do. So if you walk into one bank and you're not quite sure you like it, go someplace else and ask again. There's a lot out there, and each loan is different or can be different. So you want to find one that works for you.
And yet I have to say that one of the reasons that you and I, Annette, have aligned ourselves with Andrew and his team is that he's got them all.
You better believe
And I count on him to cover all the needs of my clients. And really, our business has ranged from those very first time, very young buyers to all the way up into the multi-million dollars. So it's nice to know that you've got somebody who knows what he's doing and has the entire menu of product.
Mhm.
And I would say that's really important, because you can't make a good choice if the menu's too small.
Exactly. And I threw this next slide in because if I want to get a mortgage, what do I need to get to Andrew?
Yeah, so no, this is great. And really what we're looking for here, Annette, is when we do the pre-approval process, which I notice is on the slide here, we're really assessing three things. We're assessing down payment ability, where's the down payment coming from? Credit, how likely are they to pay us back based on how they've paid other people in the past? And their income, that debt to income ratio calculation. So it sounds so complicated, but it's really those three things that we're looking to verify. And so the 1003 loan application, that's merely a technical term for a mortgage application, but it's going to include things like your address history, where you live, your work history, where you work, your income, your rent payment right now, your proposed housing payment, all your liabilities, all your assets. And then it's going to have some declarations questions about, have you had any bankruptcies or foreclosures or lawsuits or federal debt? Do you intend to live in the property? It's got about 9 or 10 questions there at the end. So that's the loan application that we kind of go through with the audience here as we're starting to put together the loan. Now, nowadays, what do you want to prepare in terms of documents to be sort of ahead of this process? You'd want to put together your last month of pay stubs, your last 2 years of W-2 statements. That's the earnings statement from your employer to state what you earned in 2019 and 2018. Your tax returns, your federal tax returns for 2 years would always be good. I know some people have other businesses. They might have a W-2 day job, but then they have a little self-employed consulting business or music business or something else on the side. So it's always good to see the tax returns. And then bank statements. So we want to talk a little bit about retirement statements, investment statements, bank statements. Again, just to sort of define the assets that you have to put down. We really only at this point in time of COVID and lending being a little bit more strict, we really don't do pre-approval. So I know some lenders will do what's called a pre-qual or a pre-qualification. And that's really almost like hearsay information. It's sort of like, hey, I earned this, I might be able to put this down. It's really less concrete. Whereas when we do the pre-approval, we're running a hard credit check on the client. It doesn't affect your credit, don't worry. But we're doing that. They're uploading their documents. So those pay stubs, W-2s, tax returns, bank statements. And then we're running the file through what's called automated underwriting, which is a preliminary underwriting scan to ensure that we have an approvable program. And at that point, we can go back to the client and say, hey, you qualify for 2 or 3 different programs, and then we can compare and contrast and say, hey, this is why I think maybe the mass housing is great for you, or maybe in your scenario, conventional is better, or an FHA suits your situation better. So it's really great that we have that evaluation, and like Lynn was saying, all those different programs, because from there, we have that conversation, we issue the pre-approval. And then at that point, you're literally in a position where you can shop the market with Lynn and Annette. You're ready to make an offer when you see a great house you like. I had a customer I talked to 2 hours ago, and they're going to be selling a home in Boston and buying a house in Dover. And they said, we might want to do this in the next 6 months. This was literally an hour ago. And as we were starting the presentation, they emailed me and said, now that we know we can buy before we sell, we actually want to make an offer on this property tomorrow morning. And so they're going to be submitting their pre-approval through me tonight. And I told them, if we don't have the pre-approval tonight, you'll have it by 5 a.m. tomorrow so you can make your offer. So it can be a quick process. It can be a slow process, but it's very user-friendly. And, having a team assembled like Annette and Lynn, and myself or another lender they might work with is really just the best approach with this process.
Okay.
Yeah, well, because we know how to walk you through it, how to keep you on timeline. And frankly, the best thing that I think Annette and I bring to the table is a stable of amazing support professionals like you. The attorneys that can get you through it, the handymen when you need it, great insurance people. Over the years, we've put together a team that we know functions like a well-oiled machine, and that's one of the best benefits that professionals bring to the table. We do this every day. You're going to do it. I mean, I'm almost 70 years old and I've done it 5 times in my lifetime. So you don't need to know everything. You need to find the right people who know what they're doing.
Okay, let's get down to the meat of this. Can we really do
This is a lot of fun. Let's take a look at some actual properties that are on the market. This one is on the market both to purchase it and to rent it. So I guess the landlord is saying whatever comes first.
Yeah, I think this was the one that was both for rent and for sale.
One in the building is for rent, right? So take a look at this. Here is a condominium near Kenmore Square on the market for $369. The
house,
$369,000. The landlord would also accept a rental application for $2,100. Let's go through the numbers. Andrew, have you seen a comparison like this before? It's really quite eye-opening. If you were to pay the list price, and this one had a condo fee of $211, and all that has to be worked into your payment, and we ran the numbers at 2.99, the rates have dropped since then, right?
They have a little bit, yeah.
A little bit. So your payment would actually be slightly lower. If you only had 3% to put down.
That's $11,000.
Right. Your monthly payment with condo fee and that magical PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, would top out at $1,700.
Now
That's
this is tiny now. This is tiny. This is the size of a 2-car garage.
This is a very small unit. That's true.
It's the smallest one. But I'll tell you then, when I went looking, I used $400,000 as my top price. I found 48 condos in Boston, 400 or below. I also found a couple of parking spaces, almost as expensive, but mostly just the condos there. Okay.
But it's quite miraculous. You would save yourself a few $100s a month and build equity and have a tax deduction and work your way toward wealth building. That's cool.
Now, this is another one. I like Savin Hill. I've sold a couple of places there. And for those who've worked in Boston, I said it's Savin Hill, but it's over the bridge. It's on the other side of the highway, but very close to the Savin Hill T-stop. It's a very desirable location. And again, this is 824 square feet. It's a nice sized condo. It's 2 bedrooms. And they're asking $375,000 for it with a monthly fee of $280. And we can talk about breaking down all the numbers, but the bottom line is for about $1,800 a month, you can live here. A similar 1-bedroom unit was currently renting for $1,800 a month, and a 2-bedroom was renting for $2,250 a month. So again, if you can get that down payment, that 1 month, when you're moving in, you can pay.
Well, let's talk about it. If you were to rent it for $1,800, you would have minimally.
That's the 1-bedroom. The 2-bedroom is the one we're comparing it to.
You would have to amass, just to get into the place, almost $7,000 right there.
Right there, yeah.
Right there. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I've had a few people say to me, well, I have a roommate situation and, you know, I might be able to do this, but my roommate can't. I don't think there's any problem with a roommate paying you for the use of a bedroom. Is there, Andrew?
Say that again, for renting out one of the bedrooms?
If I bought a 2-bed and I wanted to rent out a bedroom to my roommate, could I?
Absolutely.
There
Yeah.
you go. So theoretically, if you can afford to buy a little bigger and you buy that extra bedroom, you could rent it out and cover a good chunk of your mortgage payment. So to me, it made a whole lot of sense. Here's one more in Brighton.
It's on Common Avenue there. It's so
Yeah.
nice there too. I like Savin Hill better, but this is my second favorite.
Yeah. So on the market for $400,000, has a higher condo fee. And I want to talk a little bit about condo fees. Don't let me forget. But even with the condo fee built in, your cost would be the equivalent of what it's on the market for rent. It doesn't make any sense to pay your landlord's mortgage instead of your own, does it? It's just illogical. Now, the condo fee is an interesting thing because it basically says, I'm going to put a certain amount of money toward the maintenance and repair necessary for this building. And I suppose if you bought a single family, you would still have that obligation, but there's a big difference, right, Andrew, in terms of your buying power, right?
Say that one again, Lynn, exactly.
There's a big difference because a condo fee of $400 a month affects your buying power because it's a monthly obligation.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends what you're getting for it, Lynn, right? So like, you know, what I've heard in the past is some people say, oh, I really want a low condo fee. You know, I've heard that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've heard attorneys cringe when people say that because they're nervous that the property could be underfunded. And again, I think, you know, it always comes down to what's included in that condo fee.
Right.
So like a lot of them you've seen, Lynn, you've pointed out to me where it actually includes heat, you know, hot
Right.
water. So, you know, maybe it's offsetting some of the utilities where on some of the other units you would have to pay those separately. You know, maybe it's paying for a pool or a gym or, you know, something that you can take advantage of. So, yeah, it's really just, you know, what are you getting for that money, you know? But yeah,
But
it
if
can
you bought
vary
something
the
for
cost.
$400,000 without a single family, you could actually afford to buy something a little larger because you wouldn't have had that monthly obligation. But there's a plus or a minus there because you still have to take care of your home. So go ahead.
Here's that single family at 400. I had to choose it. It has the same last name as I do. This is 5 Reynolds Avenue in Randolph. And again, the list price is $400,000. That was the upper limit of my search. No condo fee. So you could get into it for $1,600 a month.
Whereas a home in Randolph that's very similar would rent for $2,500.
Yep.
So should you pay yourself a condo fee? That's what I always tell my first-time home buyers buying a single. Pay yourself a small fee, a couple $100 a month that you put in a segregated account to cover unexpected repairs, to have money when the house needs painting. But it doesn't necessarily count against that monthly obligation. So your buying power goes up.
It's a lot easier than writing that $9,000 check for the roof when you.
That's exactly right. So I always counsel my first-time buyers to pay themselves the equivalent of a condo fee. Just put it in the bank and hide it from yourself. So I just thought that this was an amazing compare and contrast because you could rent this house for $2,500, but with as little as 3% down, you could own it and spend only $1,600 a month. Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. It was pretty amazing to me. Again, we don't always look through what's available for this program. And when I sit down here and run the numbers, I just shake my head and I can't believe it. We should be speaking to a whole bunch of people about what they can do. But then the question arises, the virus. Can we safely buy a home now? Can people safely sell their homes now? Lynn, did you want to take this or did you want me to?
Sure. Well, go ahead. I mean, we're doing it. Annette and I make no bones about the fact that we have a lot of experience. We've been on the earth a long time. So we pay attention to the limitations imposed on us all because of the coronavirus. And neither of us would want to knowingly put ourselves at risk. And yet we've sold several properties or helped others buy several properties during this time. And we did so by putting some really careful guidelines in place, and we stick to them. So we start with, at least in any property we represent, we start with a very in-depth virtual three-dimensional photographic tour of the property so that you get a sense of it without ever leaving your home, and try to screen out. In other words, we may only show you 3 homes because we've shown you 20 virtually, if that makes sense.
And that's become the standard in the industry. Agents are putting up videos, virtual tours. In fact, they don't want to even show you the house one-on-one unless you've seen the tour.
Right.
And what it does is it minimizes the number of people coming through the house. The homeowners feel safer, the buyers feel safer, and the agents feel safer. And of course, always masks, sanitizer. Yeah, we're living the COVID life these days.
There you go. The last 2 properties we have represented and sold were owned by people we never physically met. Think about that. That's crazy. We were able to get all of our paperwork signed virtually. And if you were to work with us to purchase your first home, we would meet with you in depth personally via Zoom as well, because we'd want to really interview you, get to know what you want, what's important to you, what isn't important to you, really get a thorough picture of what you're looking for so that we can do the legwork to find it for you without inconveniencing you or putting you at risk. We all use, Andrew as well, electronic signature to get the ball rolling. We use, and I don't know if you know this, Andrew, but we have a new system called Deposit Link for all monies due. That's like Venmo for real estate. It's fabulous.
Wow.
It's fabulous. We no longer have to pick up and deliver checks.
Wow.
It is literally Venmo for real estate, and it's very, very safe, and it's
Easy.
encrypted and easy.
Finally, you guys are up with the times here, Lynn. No, you guys are doing awesome.
See, don't tell me I'm old. So that would be true for any earnest money that's due. Some of the inspectors are doing essentially FaceTime inspections. You don't necessarily have to be there. You can walk the property with your inspector on your. And of course, we're doing drive-by closings. That sounds so funny. It's like going to McDonald's and buying a home. But several of the attorneys with whom we both close are preparing the paperwork, bringing a packet to your car, sliding it through the window, talking to you on the phone, walking you through each page as you sign it. You put it back in the envelope and slide it back through the window, and they record digitally online. So if we let the coronavirus keep us from having a full life, shame on us. Must we adapt? Absolutely. Are we adaptable? Of course we are. And I will say that if Annette and I can do it at our age, you guys can do it too.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we have a number of people, they stayed the whole time. God bless you all. I was wondering if you have any questions for us. You can type them into the chat or into the Q&A. Well, it looks like you folks did a fantastic job of answering all of the questions. I will follow up with everybody to make sure they have all of our contact information if more questions come up. And again, Andrew and James and Lynn, I want to thank you all so very much. It's been a great evening with you.
Thank you, Annette, because you pulled all the visuals together, my geeky friend. So there you go. Okay.
All right. Thanks so much for having us, team.
Guys.
Have a good night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take care.